Hi there, I'm Amanda Castor with Material Girl Quilts, and today I'm here to share with you the pattern for this homespun table topper. I made this this Halloween version a few years ago, and it sits on our kitchen table in the month of October. It finishes at 32 inches square, which is actually perfect for the center of our kitchen table, but I decided I would like another version that we can put out for more than the month of October. So that's what we're going to be working on today. Now this block I found in the block libraries for EQ. It's called the Homespun block, and since it contains two of my favorite quilt elements, the flying geese and the half square triangles, I fell instantly in love. And I just decided to make it an oversized block because I love just big blocks in like one big block quilt, and that's how I created this table topper. So let's get started. First, we're going to start with the half square triangle blocks. For my new version, the background fabric, which is the black on this version, I'm going to use this navy floral print. And for the half square triangles, I'll be using this yellow. So for the half square triangles, you will need to cut a total of 8 5-inch squares from both the background and the yellow fabric. Once you get your squares cut, you lay them right sides together, and on the back of your top fabric you will draw a line from corner to corner on the diagonal, and then you will sew 1/4 inch on either side of this line. And that's what I've done here. And once that's sewn, you will then cut directly on the line. And you open that up, and that gives you 2 half square triangles. Now you want to press these towards the dark fabric. So you repeat that process, and with each of these 8 squares that will result in 16 half square triangles. You press towards the background, and you'll want to then trim them up to measure 4.5 inches square. Now my preferred method for trimming is with the block lock ruler. If you're not familiar with this, I'll link in the video description what these are. They're a great tool, especially when you press towards one side. These rulers will then lock onto the seam so that it doesn't shift as you're starting to trim. And this particular ruler is really perfect for this quilt because it's actually 4.5 inches square, what we need to trim our blocks. So again, you will repeat that process to create a total of 16 half square triangles. Now for the flying geese fabric, which is the orange in the Halloween version, I'm going to make with this burgundy print. So for that, you will need to cut 2 9.25 inches squares of the geese fabric, and then 8 4 7/8 inch squares of your background fabric. So the method my preferred method for creating flying geese is the no waste method. And it also creates 4 geese at one time, so it's a win-win in my opinion. So to do this, you will take one of your 9.25 inch squares of geese fabric and 2 of your 4 7/8 inch background squares. Lay them right sides together on opposite corners. Again, you will then draw a line on the diagonal through the center, and you will sew 1/4 inch on either side of that line. And I've done that here. And so these are sewn, and then we trim again. We cut directly on the drawn line. And that will give you 2 sections that you press towards your background fabric, and it creates these kind of funky heart-shaped. I'll show you. I have 2 that are already pressed. You wind up with these kind of funky heart shapes, and then what you'll do, after these 2 are created, you will take, for both of them, you will do another 4 7/8 inch background square place it on the remaining open corner of your geese fabric. Draw again a line on the diagonal, so 1/4 inch on either side of that drawn line, and we've done that here. And then one last time we will cut directly on the drawn line and press towards the background fabric, and that gives you your flying geese. So for each of those funny heart-shaped sections, it will result in 2 geese per each, so a total of 4 geese per 9 1/4 inch geese square that we cut. So once you're done with your geese, you'll want to square them up if necessary and trim to measure 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches. When I use this method, typically all I need to do is get my scissors and snip these little dog ears off the corners, but still you should check to make sure that your seam allowances were good and measure 4.5 inches by 8.5 inches, and you'll have a total of 16 flying geese. Wait, no, that's wrong. 8 flying geese. Okay, I'm gonna go finish piecing all of these segments and we'll be back to put it all together. Okay, we're back. One tip I forgot to mention before I sewed all my units together was for your flying geese, when you're using the 9 1/4 inch geese fabric and you set your background squares on diagonal corners, before you take that to your sewing machine, you're going to want to make sure that you pin those in place. Since they're larger, they'll tend to slip. So we now have all of our half square triangles, 16 half square triangles, and 8 flying geese. And then you will also need, for the center of this quilt, 1 8.5 inch background square. And you'll lay that out as shown, and in the printable pattern in the video description, it'll have all this information. And then once you go to sew it together, you're going to sew it in rows. So you'll start here. This is row 1 that has 2 half square triangles, a flying geese, and 2 more half square triangles. So you sew this row together, and then the next row, and then the third row are your flying geese, your large center square, and more flying geese. And you continue with your rows. Once that's all sewn together, it will measure 24.5 inches square. So to finish it off, you will cut some border strips, 2 at 4.5 inches by 24.5 inches. You'll piece those onto either side of the block, and then you will cut 2 more at 4.5 inches by 32.5 inches, and you'll piece those onto the top and bottom of your block. So the table topper will finish at 32.5 inches square. Here's what my finished table topper looks like. Thanks so much for watching. The pattern printout for this table topper, as well as materials I use, is in the video description. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you're notified when new tutorials go live. Thanks again, and see you next time.